When we gaze upon the golden mask of Tutankhamun or the colossal statues of Rameses the Great, we see the majesty of ancient Egypt. We imagine a civilization of immense power, wealth, and divine order, one that believed in an eternal afterlife. Yet beneath this gilded surface lies a darker, more complex story, one unfolding for more than 3,100 years. It is a story of theft, betrayal, and desperation, where the sacred was plundered and the dead were disturbed. This uncomfortable history of tomb raiding is not a modern phenomenon, but a practice almost as old as the pyramids themselves, a constant shadow that has followed Egypt through the ages. The line between preservation and plunder, between a righteous act and a criminal one, has always been astonishingly thin in the sands of Egypt. Who was the true thief? Was it the desperate worker who broke into a sealed tomb for a few scraps of gold to feed his family? Was it the corrupt official who turned a blind eye in exchange for a share of the spoils? Or was it the powerful pharaoh who dismantled his predecessors' monuments to build his own, effectively erasing history? This long and tangled narrative forces us to confront difficult questions about ownership, legacy, and the very definition of heritage itself. Our journey begins not in the recent past, but deep within the New Kingdom, over 3,100 years ago. We will uncover an extraordinary document, the Abbott Papyrus, which details one of history's first recorded corruption scandals. It pits one mayor against another in a dramatic courtroom showdown over state-sanctioned looting. From there, we will see how the very men entrusted to build eternal resting places turned their secret knowledge of passages and false chambers into a commodity on an ancient black market when their wages failed to arrive. The New Kingdom of Egypt, a period of unparalleled power and opulence, saw the pharaohs abandon the conspicuous pyramids of old. In their place, they chose a desolate, sun-scorched valley on the west bank of the Nile at Thebes, today's Luxor. This became the Valley of the Kings, a secret royal necropolis. Each tomb, a subterranean palace for the afterlife, carved deep into limestone cliffs, filled with staggering quantities of gold, furniture, sacred objects. They were not just graves, but divine machines, built to ensure the pharaoh's rebirth. Yet, in creating this concentrated repository of wealth, the pharaohs drew a treasure map for future thieves. For centuries, secrecy and the Medjay held looters at bay. But by the late 20th dynasty, around 1100 BCE, the Egyptian state began to fray at the edges. A series of weak rulers, economic instability, and foreign threats. Grain payments that supplied workers and officials grew inconsistent, and hunger began to gnaw at society. In that climate, the once sacred tombs began to look less like divine monuments and more like untapped reserves of wealth, just waiting for those bold enough to claim them. The early black market was a direct consequence of this decay. It wasn't an organized syndicate as we'd imagine today, but a shadowy network of individuals driven by need. A hungry stonecutter might conspire with a corrupt guard. A priest might turn a blind eye for a share of melted-down gold. The goods plundered from the tombs were rarely sold whole. Precious metals were melted into anonymous ingots. Intricate jewellery was broken apart for its gems, and inscribed wooden chests were stripped of their gold foil. Those raw materials were then discreetly traded for grain, oil or cloth, feeding a clandestine economy operating just beneath official life. This illicit trade was an open secret in Thebes. Everyone knew it was happening, from the lowest labourer to the highest official. The problem was not a lack of awareness, but a lack of will or ability to stop it. The very sanctity of the afterlife, a cornerstone of belief for 2 millennia, was being dismantled piece by piece, not by foreign invaders, but by the Egyptians themselves. It was a crisis of faith and order, and it was about to erupt into a public scandal. In the 16th year of the reign of Rameses IX, the simmering crisis in Thebes finally boiled over. Its contours and its stakes would be preserved in a single extraordinary record. The Abbott Papyrus, one of the most remarkable survivals of ancient Egypt, reads like a court transcript. The official minutes of a commission convened to investigate widespread tomb robbery. It also records a political feud, pitting Pasha, mayor of the East Bank at Karnak, against his rival on the West Bank, Pharaohs, whose jurisdiction included the royal necropolis itself. Pasha receives a disturbing report. Tombs in the sacred Valley of the Kings, the eternal houses of mighty pharaohs, have been violated. He alleges a conspiracy of silence on the West Bank under Mayor Pharaohs. The vizier, Khemweset, convenes a great tribunal, and the commission sets out to inspect the tombs named in the complaint. At each site, seals and outer chambers are checked. To Pasha's dismay, most are found sound and intact. Only one, King Sobekemsaf II, has been thoroughly ransacked, noted almost as an isolated breach. The findings humiliate Pasha in public. Crowds cheer Pharaohs, jeering across the Nile at the rival delegation as the investigation appears to falter. Yet the papyrus hints at more. That single breach triggers a full criminal inquiry. Interrogations follow, quiet rooms, hard questions, and the men begin to confess. Amenpnufa, a stonemason, describes how his gang of 8 spent days breaking into the tomb. Insider skill turned to violation. We found the god at the back of his burial place. They stripped the gold from the noble mummy, tore away amulets and jewels, and hacked the golden coffin into pieces, then even set fire to the royal remains. The spoils were divided: gold, silver, bronze. Testimony exposes the brutal reality. Portable wealth harvested, ruins left behind, hunger driving sacrilege. Confessions show Pasha was right. Tomb robbing was systemic. A web of complicity on the West Bank emerges, too entangled for easy justice. Some low-level thieves were caught and likely impaled. High-level complicity remained unanswered. Pharaohs appears to have kept his post. The great tomb robbery trials of Rameses IX were a watershed, a public admission that the sacred trust was broken and the eternal homes of the pharaohs were no longer safe. While desperate workmen tunneled into the sacred tombs from below, a different, more audacious form of appropriation was happening in plain sight, perpetrated not by thieves in the night, but by the pharaohs themselves. This was the era of divine recycling that reached its zenith under Rameses II, also known as Rameses the Great. He was a master of propaganda. Rather than quarrying new material, Rameses often took monuments of his predecessors and made them his own. Statue hijacking. The process was systematic. Stonemasons chiseled away cartouches, smoothed the surface, then carved Ramesses' name and titles. In one swift action, a statue of Amenhotep III, or Akhenaten, could be transformed, its history erased, and its glory transferred to the new king. This practice was not seen as theft. To the pharaoh, all of Egypt, including the monuments of his ancestors, was his divine inheritance. He was the living incarnation of the god Horus, and his predecessors were simply earlier manifestations of the same eternal kingship. The scale of Ramesses' usurpation was immense. This strategy allowed him to create an unparalleled architectural footprint across Egypt in a remarkably short period. If Rameses II was the king of statue hijacking, then the pharaohs of the Third Intermediate Period were the masters of wholesale architectural recycling. Around 1070 BCE, Pharaoh Susenes turned to the grand semi-abandoned city of Pi-Rameses, which lay just 20 kilometers away. The result was that Tanis became what can only be described as a Lego city, built almost entirely from the scavenged ruins of a bygone era. A wall in a temple dedicated to Amun might be built from blocks covered in inscriptions praising Rameses II, placed out of order or even upside down. By physically moving the monumental heart of the Ramesside dynasty to their own city, the Tanite kings were positioning themselves as the legitimate successors. This large-scale quarrying marks a profound shift, where the monuments of the past were no longer seen as untouchable, sacred structures, but a resource to be exploited for the needs of the present. By the dawn of the 21st dynasty, the Theban priesthood made a momentous decision. If they could no longer protect the royal mummies, they would gather them together and hide them. This operation became known as the Great Migration of the Royal Dead. However, there was another, far more pragmatic side to this operation. The priests did not simply move the mummies, they also systematically stripped them of any remaining valuables. The gold they collected was melted down and funneled into the depleted state treasury. This raises a deeply uncomfortable question. Were the priests of Amun's saviors, or were they state-sponsored looters? The priests' complex operation culminated in the creation of two secret collective tombs. The first and most significant was a hidden tomb, designated DB 320. More than 40 mummies, Seti I, Rameses II, Thutmose III, were crowded into its undecorated chambers. The result is a profound paradox. Because of the royal caches, we can today gaze upon the actual face of Rameses the Great and see the regal features of his father, Seti I. This direct physical link to the past would not exist without the priests' controversial intervention. They may have been looters for the state, but they were also, unintentionally, the greatest conservators of Egypt's royal heritage. The 19th century brought a new kind of raider to Egypt, not driven by hunger or state finance, but by national pride and an insatiable European appetite for antiquities. Following Napoleon's expedition, a wave of Egyptomania swept Europe. National museums in London, Paris, Turin were desperate to build Egyptian collections. A fierce rivalry dominated Bernardino Drovetti, Henry Salt. They became new tomb raiders, operating under diplomatic immunity. They did not see themselves as thieves. In correspondence and memoirs, they called their work a rescue. They believed artifacts belonged in enlightened European museums. The most famous agent was Giovanni Belzoni, a towering circus strongman and hydraulics engineer working for the British. He built contraptions to move multi-ton artifacts like the colossal head of Rameses II, hauling it from the Ramesseum to the Nile for shipment to the British Museum. His methods were brutal. They tunneled into tombs with battering rams, used gunpowder to clear debris, and sawed magnificent reliefs from temple walls. These gentlemen looters irrevocably shaped the world's Egyptology collections, but their actions laid the groundwork for today's debates about ownership, and the repatriation of cultural heritage. The long and complex history of looting in Egypt has now entered a new and challenging phase. The political instability after the 2011 revolution created a security vacuum. Malawi Museum's looting stands as a stark symbol. In one night, stole over 1,000 artifacts. Today, it's a highly organized criminal enterprise. Local diggers using heavy machinery like backhoes excavate sites indiscriminately. These items pass through chains of intermediaries, then appear for sale in auction houses. Forged documents and willful ignorance wash away their history. The scale of the problem is staggering, visible even from orbit. Archaeologists have turned to the sky, pioneering space archaeology. Using high-resolution satellite imagery and infrared technology, researchers scan vast desert landscapes. They look for telltale signs, thousands upon thousands of pits pocking the ground like a disease. This technological cat-and-mouse game is the new front line. Satellites can identify scars, but they cannot stop the digging itself. As our journey through 3 millennia of theft and preservation comes to a close, we are left with a story of deeply blurred lines. The narrative of tomb raiding in Egypt is not a simple tale of heroes and villains. Each acted from motives that were logical and even justifiable within their own time. This complicated legacy fuels one of the most pressing cultural debates of our time: the repatriation of artifacts. Countries like Egypt increasingly and forcefully argue that these artifacts are a stolen part of their national identity. There are no easy answers in this debate. Who is the rightful owner of an object taken 200 years ago, which was itself recycled from a monument 1,000 years before that? Ultimately, the story of Egypt's tombs is a powerful reflection on humanity's relationship with its own past. It shows us that history is not a static, untouchable entity, but a resource that has always been used and reused. From the pharaohs who hijacked statues to the archaeologists who now use satellites to protect what remains, the struggle to control the narrative of ancient Egypt continues. A layered and often contradictory inheritance that we are all now responsible for navigating. When one thinks of Britain and its deep, abiding fascination with ancient Egypt, certain images spring to mind. We see the grand columned halls of the British Museum. We picture dusty adventurers in pith helmets, their faces etched by the desert sun. We imagine the thrill of discovery. We imagine uncovering a tomb sealed for millennia. But between the sands of the Nile Valley and the galleries of London, there stood figures who made this connection possible. The galleries of London, the gatekeepers, the facilitators, the men on the ground, those who turned wonder into pathways between worlds. One of the most important, yet often overlooked of these figures was a man named Henry Salt. He was not a king or a general, yet his influence on our understanding of ancient Egypt is as monumental as the statues he helped bring to the world. Henry Salt was born in Lichfield, Staffordshire, in 1780. It was a world away from the desert landscapes he would later call home. His father was a physician, a respected man in town. Lichfield's magnificent three-spire cathedral, the town's intellectual climate, birthplace of Dr. Samuel Johnson. Young Henry grew up in a comfortable middle-class home that encouraged the genteel arts. He was the youngest of 8 children. From an early age, he showed a distinct talent for drawing. His sketchbook became everything. His early education was respectable, though not destined for Oxford or Cambridge. He attended school in Lichfield and later in nearby Market Bosworth. His father recognised his gifts and decided to nurture them. He was sent to London to study painting. He studied under Joseph Farrington, then trained at the Royal Academy. During his time as a student in London, Henry Salt developed more than brush or pencil. He cultivated curiosity beyond the studio, observing people and places and learning languages. While his formal education was unremarkable, his self-education was extensive. He read widely: travel, geography, history. This blend of artistry and inquiry made him ideal for Viscount Valentia, who wished to document the world. Before photography, the expedition artist was paramount, a faithful visual recorder. Botanical and zoological studies, architectural wonders and ceremonial dress, and the very shape of the land. His drawings were data, Britain's first glimpses of distant worlds. Salt's calm temperament suited delicate dealings with dignitaries and officials. In Ottoman lands, protocol was perilous, missteps could be disastrous. He learned to listen, to work through interpreters, and to communicate clearly, a diplomat in embryo. In 1802, Henry Salt set sail with Viscount Valentia on a voyage that would define his future. Eastward, around Africa's Cape of Good Hope, to India. In Calcutta, he sketched the life and architecture of a bustling imperial city. In 1805, Valentia sent Salt into the interior of Abyssinia, a Christian kingdom closed to Europeans. His task? Establish contact with the emperor and explore trade for Britain. He faced treacherous terrain and complex politics, yet reached the royal court. He documented customs, language and history, producing portraits and landscapes of enduring value. The mission proved a success, enhancing his reputation. He returned in 1806. His work appeared in Valentia's Voyages and Travels, 1809, lavishly illustrated from Salt's drawings. Its success led to a second official mission as Crown Envoy. In 1811, travelling home through Egypt, he saw the monuments that would later dominate his life, the perfect apprenticeship for Britain's man in Cairo. In 1815, Napoleon fell and Europe was remade. Peace refocused minds on global trade and influence. Egypt, under Muhammad Ali, was rising, ambitious, modernizing, strategically vital. In 1816, Henry Salt was appointed British Consul General. He protected British trade, dealing with merchants, captains, customs. He was also a political operative, managing relations with Muhammad Ali. And he countered France's formidable consul, Bernardino Drovetti. Salt became the point of contact for Europe's travellers, scholars and adventurers. His office gave access, permissions to travel and excavate. He supplied escorts and support. Thus, consular duty merged with discovery. He was no bystander, he was a central participant in Egypt's great unearthing. Once established, Salt pursued antiquities with extraordinary energy, part cultural rivalry with France, part personal mission. Both he and Drovetti sought the finest treasures for national collections. Salt employed agents and sponsored expeditions along the Nile. His most effective agent was Giovanni Battista Belzoni, former circus strongman, fearless, ingenious. Salt tasked him to remove the granite bust of Rameses II, the younger Memnon, at Thebes. Napoleon's men had failed. In 1816, Belzoni's rollers and levers succeeded. The 7-ton monolith began its journey to London. Its arrival caused a sensation, echoed in Shelley's Ozymandias. In 1817, Belzoni opened the tomb of Seti I, walls alive with colour. He made meticulous copies and a wax impression of the exquisite sarcophagus. He entered Khafra's pyramid, disproving old beliefs. Salt's funding, cover and direction turned muscle into method, though by modern standards the methods were crude and fast. Over his years in Egypt, Salt assembled 3 enormous collections, systematic troves of statues, sarcophagi, papyri, mummies, and countless small objects. The first collection, gathered between 1816 and 1818, after protracted negotiations, was purchased by the British Museum in 1823. It formed the bedrock of the museum's Egyptian sculpture gallery. The second collection, richer for scholars, included Seti's sarcophagus. Offered again to the British Museum, it was controversially declined. Exhibited, then sold in Paris in 1826. Many key pieces, including crucial papyri, went to the Louvre. Seti's sarcophagus found a home with Sir John Soane, where it remains. Salt's third collection, over 1,000 objects, many stelae and Greek papyri, was gathered in his final years. After his death in 1827, it was sold in London in 1835. The British Museum bought heavily, no longer willing to miss its chance. Throughout his hectic life, Salt never abandoned art. His paintbrush and sketchbook were constant companions. Trained and composed, he captured likeness, colour and character. He recorded landscapes and monumental ruins, Karnak, Philae, Abu Simbel. He preserved their early 19th century appearance, often before decay or restoration. His portraits sought the dignity and individuality of his subjects, not mere types. His art bridged cultures, communication in line and colour. 24 views: St. Helena, the Cape, India, Ceylon, Abyssinia and Egypt. A visual autobiography, tracing his path from draftsman to consul. Before collector or diplomat, he was an artist, bringing an artist's eye to the ancient world. His fame rests on antiquities, yet his art, too often overlooked, remains vital. In his final years, Salt's health declined and weariness set in. The Egyptian climate, once invigorating, took its toll. A recurring illness, likely of the spleen or liver, left him weakened. The great game of collecting now felt a burden. Yet he served on, building a third collection. In 1826 he journeyed up the Nile, partly for health, partly to oversee his agents. With John Gardner Wilkinson, he revisited the sites that shaped his life. It was a poignant farewell to temples and tombs. He returned more unwell than ever, set his affairs in order and wrote his will. He ensured his final collection would be catalogued and sold. Henry Salt died on October 30th, 1827, near Alexandria, in Dessouq. Buried in Alexandria, the gateway to his life's work, the sun set on one of the 19th century's most remarkable lives. Henry Salt's legacy is complex and far-reaching. The British Museum's Egyptian galleries stand on his efforts. He provided both monumental sculptures and intimate artifacts, bringing the pharaohs face to face with the public. His collections underpinned the rise of Egyptology, language, history, religion. He sponsored Belzoni, assisted Champollion, supported Wilkinson. He bridged treasure hunters and modern archaeologists, typical of his time, yet moving knowledge forward. His legacy is debated today. Ethics, ownership, repatriation. He operated with the ruler's permission, yet questions endure. Ultimately, Salt was a diplomat who grasped culture's power, an artist who prized beauty, a collector who recognized significance. His life mirrors Europe's encounter with Egypt. Wonder, competition, discovery, appropriation. His name may not rival Carter's or Rameses, but as Egypt's gatekeeper, Henry Salt profoundly shaped how we see the ancient world. Giovanni Battista Belzoni was a man of extraordinary strength and even greater ambition. His life was a testament to the power of determination and the pursuit of one's passions. Born in Padua, Italy in 1778, he towered over most at 6 feet 7 inches tall. His imposing stature was matched only by his larger-than-life personality and unyielding drive. Belzoni's early life was a colourful tapestry of adventure and enterprise. From a young age he was fascinated by the world around him and sought to make his mark in it. He trained as a monk but felt drawn to a different path. The monastic life, with its quiet contemplation, could not contain his restless spirit. Europe in the late 18th century was in turmoil. The continent was a hotbed of political upheaval and social change, providing a backdrop for Belzoni's own transformations. Belzoni travelled widely, reinventing himself as a strongman in a travelling circus. His performances were not just about brute strength, they were a showcase of his ingenuity and showmanship. He captivated audiences with feats of strength and hydraulic inventions. His innovative spirit led him to create devices that amazed and entertained people across Europe. Yet his curious mind craved more. The life of a performer, though thrilling, was not enough to satisfy his intellectual hunger. Fate intervened when Belzoni found himself in Egypt in 1815. The allure of the ancient land, with its rich history and enigmatic monuments, was irresistible to him. The land of the Pharaohs, with its ancient mysteries, called to him. It was a place where he could combine his physical prowess with his intellectual curiosity. Little did he know he was about to embark on a journey that would change his life and the course of archaeology forever. His adventures in Egypt would lead to discoveries that would astonish the world. Belzoni's name would soon be synonymous with some of the most remarkable discoveries in Egyptian history. His legacy as a pioneering explorer and archaeologist would endure for generations to come. Egypt in the early 19th century was a land of opportunity for those with a thirst for discovery. Napoleon's expedition had rekindled Europe's fascination with ancient Egypt. The race was on to uncover its treasures. Belzoni, with his towering physique and unwavering determination, was perfectly suited for the task. He quickly became involved in the competitive world of antiquities hunting. He secured patronage from the British Consul, Henry Salt, who recognized his potential. His first major assignment was to acquire a colossal bust of Rameses II. This 7-ton relic, known as Young Memnon, lay abandoned near the Ramesseum at Thebes. Transporting this behemoth seemed an impossible feat. Yet Belzoni, with his engineering skills and sheer willpower, was undeterred. Moving the 7-ton bust of Rameses II was a logistical nightmare, a challenge that tested the limits of early 19th century engineering and human endurance. The scorching desert heat, the lack of proper roads, and the sheer size of the statue presented formidable obstacles. The harsh environment was unforgiving, with temperatures soaring and the terrain offering no mercy. But Belzoni, with his characteristic ingenuity, devised a plan. His background as a circus strongman and engineer gave him unique insights into overcoming such monumental challenges. He assembled a team of hundreds of Egyptian labourers, each playing a crucial role in this Herculean task. They used palm tree trunks as rollers and levers to inch the massive bust forward. This method, though primitive, was effective in distributing the weight and making the statue movable. The operation took months of back-breaking work under the relentless Egyptian sun. The labourers toiled day and night, driven by the vision of completing this extraordinary task. Finally, against all odds, Belzoni succeeded in transporting the colossal bust to the Nile. This was a moment of triumph, a testament to human perseverance and ingenuity. From there it journeyed by boat to Alexandria and eventually to its final destination, the British Museum in London. The journey by water was no less challenging, requiring careful navigation and handling. This remarkable feat of engineering and determination cemented Belzoni's reputation as a legend in the field of archaeology. His success not only brought the bust to a global audience, but also highlighted the incredible achievements of ancient and modern engineering. Belzoni's exploits were far from over. His adventures in Egypt had only just begun, and he was determined to uncover more of its hidden treasures. In 1817, he set his sights on Nubia, a region in southern Egypt renowned for its ancient temples. This area, rich in history and mystery, called to him like a siren's song. His mission to locate and excavate the temple of Abu Simbel. This was no ordinary task. It was a quest that required both courage and ingenuity. This temple, carved into a sandstone cliff, was said to be buried beneath the desert sands. Legends spoke of its grandeur, hidden away for centuries. Guided by local stories and his own intuition, Belzoni found the temple's entrance, half submerged in sand. It was a moment of triumph, but the real work was just beginning. The task of clearing the entrance was monumental. The sheer volume of sand that had to be removed was staggering. Once again, Belzoni rallied a team of workers. These men, driven by the promise of discovery, worked under the scorching sun. They laboured tirelessly, removing tons of sand by hand. Each shovelful brought them closer to unveiling the ancient marvel. Finally, the entrance to the temple, adorned with colossal statues of Rameses II, was revealed. These statues, standing guard for millennia, were a sight to behold. Belzoni's discovery of Abu Simbel was a sensation. News of the find spread quickly, capturing the imagination of people around the world. It offered the world a glimpse into the grandeur and power of the ancient Egyptian civilization. The temple of Abu Simbel became a symbol of the enduring legacy of Egypt's past. Belzoni's most celebrated discovery, however, awaited him in the Valley of the Kings. In 1817, he stumbled upon a hidden tomb. It belonged to Seti I, father of Rameses II. The tomb, untouched for millennia, was a treasure trove of ancient art and history. Its walls were adorned with vibrant paintings depicting scenes from Egyptian mythology. The colours were as fresh as the day they were painted. Belzoni meticulously documented his findings. He created detailed drawings and took plaster casts of the tomb's decorations. He understood the importance of preserving this fragile record of the past. His work in the tomb of Seti I set a new standard for archaeological documentation. Belzoni's thirst for knowledge led him to explore the most iconic monuments of Egypt, the pyramids of Giza. In 1818, he turned his attention to the Pyramid of Khafra. This pyramid, the second largest at Giza, had never been successfully explored. Undeterred by the dangers and difficulties, Belzoni discovered a hidden passage. He bravely entered the pyramid's depths. After weeks of painstaking effort, he reached the burial chamber. The chamber, however, was empty. It had been looted in antiquity. Despite the disappointment, Belzoni's achievement was remarkable. He was the first person in centuries to penetrate the secrets of Khafra's pyramid. Belzoni's adventures were not confined to Egypt. He explored the ancient city of Thebes, searching for the lost oasis of Siwa. He ventured into the heart of the Sahara Desert. He braved treacherous journeys and faced countless dangers, all in the name of exploration and discovery. His travels took him beyond Egypt, to the Red Sea, and even across the Atlantic to the Americas. Belzoni's life was a testament to the power of human curiosity and the allure of the unknown. His explorations, documented in his journals and drawings, provided invaluable insights into the geography, history and cultures of the regions he visited. Belzoni's work extended far beyond the realm of archaeology. He was a true pioneer, pushing the boundaries of human knowledge and experience. Tragically, Belzoni's adventurous life was cut short. He died in 1823 at the age of 45 from dysentery while on an expedition in West Africa. Despite his untimely death, Giovanni Belzoni left an indelible mark on the world. His discoveries in Egypt captivated the public imagination. He brought to light some of the most iconic treasures of ancient Egypt. His meticulous documentation of his findings set a new standard for archaeological practice. Belzoni's legacy extends beyond his individual discoveries. He helped to ignite a passion for Egyptology that continues to this day. His story serves as a reminder of the power of human curiosity and the importance of preserving our shared cultural heritage. Giovanni Belzoni lived in a time of great change and discovery. The world was opening up. Explorers like Belzoni were at the forefront, pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. His life and work offer us a fascinating glimpse into the past. They remind us of the importance of exploration, the thrill of discovery, and the enduring power of human curiosity. Belzoni's story is a testament to the enduring allure of ancient Egypt. It is a land of mystery and wonder. It continues to captivate and inspire us centuries after Belzoni first set foot on its shores. His legacy lives on, not just in the museums that house his discoveries, but in the hearts and minds of all who are drawn to the mysteries of the past. In the vast, silent desert, where time itself seems to stand still, a great story is etched in stone. Well, it is a story of power, ambition, and a king who sought to live forever. This is the story of Rameses II, a pharaoh of ancient Egypt. He was a man who became a god, a warrior who became a peacemaker, and a builder whose shadow stretches across more than 3,000 years of history. His name echoes through the ages, whispered by the winds that sweep across the Nile Valley. We journey back to an age of gold and grandeur, to understand the world he shaped and the legacy he left behind for all time. We travel to a land defined by the rhythm of the great river Nile. This was ancient Egypt during its New Kingdom period, a time of immense wealth and influence. The pharaohs who ruled from their grand cities were not merely kings. They were seen as living gods on earth, conduits between the mortal world and the divine. They commanded vast armies, they controlled immense resources, and oversaw the creation of monuments that still defy belief. In this world of absolute authority and sacred duty, a young prince was born, destined to become the most celebrated ruler of them all, a king who would earn the title Rameses the Great. To understand this king, we must first understand his world. It was a world of powerful empires, stretching from the sandy lands of Nubia in the south to the great kingdoms of the Hittites in the north. Trade routes were lifelines, carrying gold, timber, and exotic goods across deserts and seas. But these routes were also paths for armies, and conflict was a constant threat on the horizon. A pharaoh had to be Why is this one pharaoh remembered as the Great? The answer lies not in a single achievement, but in the sheer scale of everything he did. His reign was exceptionally long, giving him decades to solidify his power. He presided over a period of stability and prosperity, a golden age for his people. He was a masterful propagandist, using art and architecture to craft his image. As an invincible warrior and as a beloved son of the gods. His name, Rameses, Ra has fashioned him, was carved on countless buildings so it would never be forgotten. He is perhaps best known as a master builder. From the northern delta to the southern frontier of Nubia, he commissioned construction across the realm. He completed vast halls at Karnak and added to the beauty of Luxor. He founded a new capital, Rameses, a bustling metropolis filled with palaces, barracks, temples. Most famously, he carved 2 temples out of a mountainside at Abu Simbel, their giant statues standing as eternal guards. But his story is also one of family and diplomacy. He was father to over 100 children. His chief wife, Queen Nefertari, was honoured with her own temple. After a great clash with the Hittites at Kadesh, he did something remarkable. He negotiated the world's first known international peace treaty, ending decades of conflict and ushering in stability. In this quiet exploration, we follow his life, from the glories of his reign to the moment of his death. We will see how he was laid to rest, mummified, entombed in the Valley of the Kings, prepared for the afterlife. We will witness his rediscovery in the modern era, as archaeologists uncovered his tomb, his mummy, and the treasures of his age. This is the story of one man's ambition to be remembered, Ozymandias, the King of Kings. The story of Rameses the Great begins not on a throne, but in the royal courts of a new and powerful dynasty. He was born into a family that was not of ancient royal blood. His grandfather, Rameses I, had been a commoner, a skilled military commander who rose through the ranks to become pharaoh. This military background shaped the entire dynasty. They were soldiers first, pragmatic and determined to restore Egypt's strength after a period of internal turmoil. His father was Seti I, a formidable pharaoh in his own right. Seti was a great warrior and a prolific builder who began many of the projects his son would later complete. From his father, the young Rameses learned the duties of kingship. He would have accompanied Seti on tours of the kingdom, watching as he administered justice and oversaw the construction of temples. He learned that a pharaoh's power was not just inherited. It was demonstrated. It was shown through military victory, through grand architecture, and through a constant visible connection to the gods. As a prince, Rameses received a rigorous education. This was not just about reading and writing the complex hieroglyphic script. His training was designed to create a future king. He learned military strategy and how to command troops. He was taught to wield a bow and to drive a chariot, the most advanced weapon of its time. This was a critical skill for a leader who was expected to lead his armies from the front line of battle. He was one of many royal children, but it became clear early on that he was special. He was not the original heir. His older brother had been destined for the throne, but died young. This twist of fate placed Rameses directly in the line of succession. From that moment, his life was no longer his own. It belonged to Egypt, and his every action was preparation for the day he would become the living embodiment of the god Horus on earth, the protector of his people. The transition of power in ancient Egypt was a sacred and carefully managed process. To prepare his son, Seti I took an unusual step. He appointed Rameses as his co-regent when the prince was still a teenager. This meant that Rameses shared the throne with his father, ruling alongside him. It was the ultimate apprenticeship. He was given real responsibilities, leading parts of the army and overseeing building projects. This practical experience was invaluable. It allowed him to understand the machinery of government, the loyalties of the court, and the immense pressures of leadership long before he had to bear them alone. This public elevation was a deliberate strategy, ensuring that when the time for succession came, the court and the country would see Rameses as the undisputed and rightful heir. When his father, Seti I, passed away, Rameses was around the age of 25. The transition was seamless, a testament to the careful planning that had preceded it. There was no struggle for power, no court intrigue to challenge his claim. He ascended the throne as the third pharaoh of the 19th dynasty, his authority already well established. His coronation would have been a magnificent ceremony, a series of complex rituals designed to confirm his divine status. At the temples of Karnak and Memphis, he was proclaimed king, his new royal name announced to the world, a name that would soon be carved across the entire country. One of his very first acts as sole ruler was to honor his father. He traveled south to Abydos, a sacred city dedicated to the god Osiris, lord of the afterlife. There, he completed the beautiful temple that his father had begun. He made grand offerings. He decreed that his father's memory should be revered forever. This was more than just an act of filial piety. It was a powerful political statement. By showing such devotion to his predecessor, Rameses was reinforcing the legitimacy of his own family's dynasty. He was showing the world that he was a respectful son, a rightful heir, and a pharaoh who understood his sacred duties. With his position as pharaoh secure, Rameses immediately turned his attention to the borders of his empire. A king's first duty was to protect his land, and Egypt's vast wealth was a constant temptation for its neighbors. Early in his reign, Rameses led a military campaign into Nubia to quell a minor rebellion and reinforce Egyptian authority. The reliefs carved to commemorate this campaign show him as a powerful, dominant warrior, easily crushing his enemies, a clear warning to any who might challenge his rule. To the west, Rameses moved decisively. He strengthened forts and garrisons, forming a defensive wall on the western frontier. His actions brought stability. His most significant challenge, however, lay to the northeast. This region was a contested buffer zone between the two great superpowers of the age, the Egyptian Empire and the Hittite Empire. In the second year of his reign, he led his army into Canaan to secure the coastal route. This was a prelude to a much larger conflict, a careful positioning of his forces for the struggle to come. In the fifth year of his reign, Rameses prepared for a decisive move. His aim was the city of Kadesh. Rameses gathered a large army. He divided it into corps. The march was a feat of logistics. He believed surprise could secure a swift victory. His generals advised caution. The pharaoh chose boldness. That choice would shape what came next. A sudden Hittite ambush struck one of these columns. It was a masterstroke of timing. The Hittite chariots struck hard and fast. The Egyptian line wavered and panic spread. In the chaos, Rameses acted decisively. He rallied his personal guard. He drove his chariot straight into the heart of the fight. The scene, as the Egyptians carved it, is cinematic and intimate. The king appears almost alone against the tide. He fights with the ferocity of a god-king. His courage steadied his men. He turned near defeat into a tactical withdrawal that held the field. The battle ended without a decisive annihilation of either side. It was, in short, a stalemate dressed as triumph. Decades of intermittent raids and battles had left both sides wearied. A formal peace treaty was crafted many years later. It survives in copies on clay and stone. The treaty is remarkable for its clarity. It outlines borders and promises of non-aggression. It includes provisions for mutual aid, and even contains the first recorded clause for extradition. The agreement lasted for decades. He used marriages and gifts to bind alliances. For Rameses, it was a crowning achievement. Diplomacy suited his image as much as warfare did. He learned to balance force with talk. In doing so, he secured peace that allowed his building projects and economy to flourish. With the northern borders secured by treaty, Rameses turned his boundless energy inward to a building program of breathtaking scale. He did not just build, he built to overwhelm. Further south, he commanded the creation of his most famous monument, the temples of Abu Simbel. They carved 2 entire temples directly out of a living mountain. 4 colossal seated statues of the pharaoh, each over 20 meters high, were carved into the cliff face. They sit as eternal guardians, a permanent statement of Egyptian power. Nearby, he carved a smaller temple for his great royal wife, Queen Nefertari. Its facade features standing statues of the king and queen, given equal height, an unusual and significant honor. In his own funerary temple, the Ramesseum, it contained another colossal statue of himself, carved from a single block of granite, estimated to have weighed over 1,000 tons. The grand monuments of Rameses II were the product of immense human effort, brilliant organization, and remarkable skill. These workers were not slaves. They were skilled artisans and laborers. Rameses died in his early 90s, an extraordinary age for the ancient world. He had outlived his beloved Nefertari. He had outlived 12 of his own sons. His tomb was looted in antiquity, and to protect his body, ancient priests moved his mummy several times, hiding it in a secret cache. There he lay for nearly 3 millennia, waiting to be found. The rediscovery of his mummy in 1881 was a moment of profound connection with the past. The face of the legendary king was seen once more. Modern science has allowed us to study him, revealing his arthritis, his dental problems, and even the reddish color of his hair. So why does the name of Rameses II echo so loudly through history? The answer is written in the landscape of Egypt. His legacy is one of sheer, overwhelming scale. He was a master of propaganda. He crafted a powerful, consistent image of himself. He repeated that story until it became historical fact. His memory survives because he willed it to. Today, visitors from all over the world gaze in wonder at the serene faces of Abu Simbel. In these moments, they feel exactly what Rameses intended, a sense of awe. His ambition was to conquer time itself. He built his story into the very fabric of his country. The sands of the desert may shift, but the shadow of Rameses the Great remains. His story, etched in stone, continues to be told, a quiet, majestic testament to one man's will to live forever.